It's 22 minutes before 10 o'clock. Good morning to you, my dear friend. Thank you so much yet again for choosing spending your morning with me. I hope that so far it's coming up all right and your coffee is ready. Suzanne is here in studio. She sent me, I think it was yesterday, and then yeah, I got distracted. There was just a lot happening, but it's the kind of films that I'd love to watch, right? So she's a filmmaker, and one of the films is called Every Sun Doesn't Rise, and also no, actually Save Me, it's the name of the film, and Forgotten. She's also written quite a number of books. She has published quite a number of books. There's Every Sun Doesn't Rise, there's Rule the Night, Echo of Mercy, A Requirement of Loss, we Dreams and Breath. She's born in Nigeria, just to mention a few of some of the work. Her storytelling journey began at the age of 11. When you and I we were busy being ourselves in our homes in terms of wanting to go play with friends and family members and cousins. Suzanne and I, she was thinking about what can I write next. At just the age of 11, she has shaped. She was shaped by her background in criminal justice. She's also in screenwriting. You've got a master's degree in screenwriting. She's also the author of quite a number of books that I've mentioned. We Rule the Night, there's Echoes of Mercy, there is A Requirement of Loss, just to mention a few. So ladies and gentlemen, Suzanne McNeil is here. We're about to dine with her on Breakfast with the Grace. Good morning, Suzanne. Are you good?
I'm good. Thank you. I'm good. Thank you for having me.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time to come and chat with us this Saturday morning. I know that you've got a lot going on. Maybe you were supposed to be in gym and you're here. I had Sis Makulube earlier on the show, and I was telling her that we'll be chatting later on today, and she was so excited. I hope that she's tuning in, because she said, listen, Liz, I'm going to be a little bit busy, but I'm going to tune in. So shout out to you, Sis Makulube. Suzanne, now for listeners who may be hearing your name for the first time, who are you and what has shaped your journey as a storyteller, as a filmmaker as well?
All right. I'm Suzanne McNeil, as she said. I've always loved reading and writing from when I was a very young age. And it's not something I necessarily thought I would do as a career, because, growing up in an African family, you're supposed to choose a real job and then do the art on the side. But by university, especially by my third year, I remember I took a screenwriting class. And despite studying criminal justice, I made sure to minor in English, because I was taking all those writing classes. They were my life. I preferred them to my my first degree classes. And in those classes, I discovered, you can write as a career. You can actually go into this full time, and there's money to be made, especially in screenwriting. Even for the most avid movie watchers, nobody thinks that, all those movies were written by someone. So that part just drew me in, and I didn't look back from there.
So what was the plan initially? What did you wanted to be when you were growing up, before the screenwriting and the...
Well, both my parents are doctors, so of course a doctor. But then by grade 9 and mathematics and math academic, by grade 10 I switched to literacy.
I know.
And I was bad at, I did try with sciences. I took physics and chemistry and dropped it after 3 weeks. I said, who are we kidding? This is not my life. I always preferred literature, history, reading, and all the kind of stuff. So even though my mom especially fought me on it, eventually even she had to realize that this girl's an artist, just let her be.
You've been writing since the age of 11, Suzanne, as you said.
I have.
And you've gone on to publish works like We Rule the Night. You've published Echoes of Mercy, Requirement of Loss, and Dreams and Breath. What did you realize, or when did you realize storytelling was more than just a hobby for you?
It started, like I said, in university. I also was in a writing group. And in university, I realized that, because at some point my advisor was like, why are you taking all these writing classes? Why are you doing this? You're affecting your studies. And I realized it didn't matter. The only thing that made me happy was writing. I would wake up in the morning, and that's all I thought about. During classes, there's all those stories in my head. By the way, even from primary school, teachers always wrote on my report card, just absent-minded, just absent-minded. And all that means is that I'm living in this world, I'm living in this adventure. So nothing made me happier than just writing. So that's what I did. I realized that, no, I can't live any other life. Even up till now, I mean, it doesn't always fully pay the bills, and sometimes you will have to find other things to do. But I keep coming back to it because I think it's what I was made for on this earth. It's the only thing I find joy doing.
Let's talk about Every Sun Doesn't Rise. We were chatting briefly off air that this is one of the books that most people want you to talk about or to reflect on, and I'm also one of those people. So Every Sun Doesn't Rise, it focuses on real African experiences. What inspired you to tell stories in this way?
So funny enough, the book was, I guess, it was born out of just life. Because funny enough, it was not one of the stories I had in my head. In 2019, I moved back to Nigeria for the first time as an adult, and I said, okay, let me see if I can live there. And then I ran back here in 2022. I couldn't cope. So when I was there, I couldn't ride. The country is on the stressful side, especially if you don't have a lot of money. So, but when I came back, I suddenly realized I had all these ideas from people I'd met, from the things I dreaded at the time, the things I was not enjoying. They all became stories in my head. And when I actually started writing this book, I couldn't write it fast enough. So briefly about the book, it's a collection of 9 short African stories. Some are based in Nigeria, some in South Africa, and one of the stories in Zimbabwe. Some of the stories linked together, and some of them are standalone. But yeah, it's all these experiences from there, from here in South Africa, some of the people I've spoken to, all those things just came together to make the book. And why I would say it's the one that even shocks me the most, it was not in my head at all. I decided that year, it was 2024, I said, okay, I knew I was going to publish. I gave myself the goal from middle of 2023. I said, you must publish a book by December 2024. And what I was working on till June was not the story. Then it hit me June and July, and I pretty much wrote like 6 of the 9 stories in the months of June and July in 2024. So, and they just came from God. I don't know where they came from. They came from God because they were not in my head before.
You went to that one. Let's maybe briefly speak about, because you mentioned that it's African stories across some of the parts or some of the countries that you've been, South Africa to be exact.
Yes.
What are some of those experiences that you've penned down specifically about South Africa? And maybe also if you can cross over to a little bit on the 2 countries as well, your experiences, what sets them apart?
Yes. So, I mean, I don't want to go through too controversial, but any foreigner in South Africa is not a stranger to sometimes xenophobic attacks and just xenophobia in general. So because I've also had actual conversations with South Africans about it, both those that don't understand why foreigners are here and those that are accepting of it. So I put that together without being biased. I showed all the points of view so that the reader can see it from all sides. The main conclusion I discovered with xenophobia is a lot of people just haven't been around people who are different from them. So they listen to the stereotypes, they listen to, for instance, people will say to me, oh, you don't seem like a Nigerian, because in their mind, a Nigerian is someone who sells drugs. And it's like, no, there's so many other things about that country, not just the one. The same way I tell some people, you won't want the worst trait of South Africa to be broadcast as, hey, this is South Africa, this South Africans. No, these are not South Africans. So it's also letting foreigners know, no, South Africans aren't xenophobic, and no, foreigners aren't this. It's showing all the sides of the story so that the reader will say, have a broader point of view from all the countries and all the perspectives.
I love the aha moment there. And you also describe this work as a reflection of the real Africa, beyond the stereotypes. What do you feel people often get wrong about African stories?
So I spent the whole of my 20s in the US, and one of the most heartbreaking things I saw experience is people not knowing anything about Africa beyond poverty and wild animals. And they'll ask me the most out there questions that I'm like, no, Africa is just like anywhere on earth. So this book is showing that Africans are also real people. We also have real experiences. The world and literature especially has been from the Western point of view, and except a few authors that I can name, most people don't know that there's a lot going on in Africa, even in literature. It's more than just Achebe and all the big names. So this book is also showing that Africans are real people with real human experiences that deserve to be told and known.
You're both a writer. You're also a filmmaker. Yes. With work spanning books and film, Suzanne. How do these 2 creative worlds, influence one another in your storytelling, and also looking at your journey so far across books, right, across films and storytelling? What has this path taught you about Africa, and what has this path also taught you about yourself?
No, so the main difference in writing books and films is that books is just you and your mind and your thoughts. Film is a more collaborative experience. I was privileged last year to shoot my first South African film in Polokwane, and just having an all South African crew. And funny enough, the movie was in Pedi, and I don't necessarily speak Pedi, but somehow I was able to direct the film. We were able to make it work.
Oh my goodness.
So it shows that when cooperative heads put together, there's nothing you can't do. It doesn't matter language barrier. Film speaks to everybody. Everybody knows what a film is. So once you understand the general idea of what you guys are trying to say, storytelling comes naturally. And it was such a blessed experience. I can't wait to do it again and again and again.
That can be really interestingly crazy, especially as you say that you don't speak Sepedi, but you directed the whole film, the way that you know how best to, that is, I think that is the beauty of art. That is the beauty of creativity.
Art is spiritual, I'm telling you. They would tell me, they'll be speaking to me in paid, because some of the older actors could not speak English at all, because we were shooting the villages too. So, and somehow I would know what they're saying. And then somehow I'll use gestures and the little Pedi words I know and add English, and they'll get what I'm saying. And somehow, and of course the crew could speak both English and Pedi, so sometimes they had to translate. But most of the time I would have one-on-one with the actors, and they would not, and then they'll get what I say, and I know the person can't speak English. So it's spiritual, guys. It's
Wish we had so much time to just, have this conversation on a broader scale and tap into some of the books that you have published. But I want you to speak to the young creative that is listening right now, who feels like their stories are too small or not important enough. What would you say to this person who's listening right now?
There's no story too small or non-important, trust me. It doesn't matter where you are. Like I said, you could be in a tiny rural area and have no idea where your life is going. Just keep doing what you do. You won't have support. Nobody will understand what you do. It doesn't matter. You have that purpose in your heart. Keep doing it, because as long as there's God up there, which we know there is, it will happen.
Thank you so much. Susan, how do we get in touch with you, to those of us who would like to follow your work? And
on my website, www.cisanmcneil.com. All my works are there, and you can reach me there.
Thank you so much for joining us this morning, Suzanne. It was such a bliss having you here. Time flies when you're having fun indeed.
Absolutely.
And we are celebrating you today here on Breakfast with the Great. This has been an inspiring conversation. I mean, your work is not only powerful, but I believe personally, I feel like it is also necessary, telling real, honest, and African stories that deserve to be heard. Not only that, deserve to be seen in all different parts or different angles as well. So we appreciate your time this morning. We celebrate you. I appreciate your vulnerability and the way that you continue to use your voice, to reflect the depth and beauty of our continent. You're definitely creating spaces for many more stories to come through. So we are celebrating you today on Breakfast with the Greats, and to you, keep going, keep on writing, keep on creating, keep on telling those stories that matter, because the world needs them, and keep on sharing the links with me as well, so I can, watch the films. So wish you nothing but growth, Suzanne, and
Thank
success and more platforms, to share your work, because it really is incredible. But before we can let you go, usually we'd like to check in with our guest, Wari. What is it that they're having for breakfast? If you've had breakfast already, have you had breakfast already?
Coffee and a banana.
Oh.
That's my breakfast every day.
Really?
Yep.
Okay, we're going to try that one. What does it do? Does it have any health benefits?
It just keeps you full till 12 for those of us intermittent fasting and trying to be healthy. Yeah.
Coffee, black, no sugar.
Well, I can't do black, so I do with lactose, low-fat milk, and then honey.
I'm going to try that combination. Thank you so much, Suzanne. All the best. Hope that we can chat up again very, very soon when you've got some of the work out, some of the films out. It will be nice to catch up.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Mingiseri, that was Suzanne McNeil. We were just catching up on some of the incredible work that she has been doing in the film space and the writing space. And, we were celebrating here on the Capricorn Sunrise Breakfast with the Grace. That's what we do best.
From chart-topping hits to powerful conversations that